Chapter 934. Don't worry about them. Let's go first. Chu Luiwei retracted his gaze and walked forward. When Fan heard this, he hurriedly reacted and led the way in front. This way, please. Below the square, there were 2 teams on each side of the square. They seemed to be here to pick people up. There were several carriages in each team. The one in front was the most luxurious. The ones behind it were slightly less luxurious, but they were still very luxurious compared to ordinary carriages. There was a totem engraved on each of the carriages. They were obviously prepared by the Beiming royal family. There were 2 top-notch carriages at the very front, both of which were pulled by 8 blue-scaled horses. The blue-scaled horses were 7th-grade magical beasts. They were considered to be of high quality, so they were very valuable. The fact that the Beiming dynasty could send so many of them to pull the carriages showed how powerful their country was. What was slightly different was that among the 8 blue-scale horses on the left, one of them had an extremely pure color. Under the sunlight, it actually shone like an azure sea. It was obviously about to break through. Of course, it was more valuable than the others. When Fan was about to walk to the team on the left when Yin Hao's voice came from behind him. When Fan, are you going to sit in the team on the right? Although it was a question, his tone was clearly in order. When Fan frowned, he turned around to look at him and said, according to the numbers, the team on the left is number 4, and the one on the right is number 5. We should be sitting in number 4. Yin Hao, however, laughed out loud. Isn't it just a number? The first 3 teams have already left. There are only 2 teams left. What's there to split? We'll take the one on the left. When Fan was a little angry. He had tolerated him before, but now he wanted to snatch the carriages. He didn't care if he was bullied, but if he backed down now, wouldn't he drag the people of the Tianling dynasty down with him? His voice became colder. Yin Hao, we all know the principle of first come, first served. Moreover, the people of the Tianling dynasty came first. Naturally, you should sit in number 4. Yin Hao was refuted in front of everyone. He felt that he had lost face and his face turned ugly. Didn't you hear what I said just now? His Majesty is waiting to play chess and catch up with Emperor Huairan. If it's delayed, can you bear the responsibility? When Fan sneered in his heart. Their mission today was to pick up the people here and settle them down. If he wanted to see His Majesty, he had to wait until tomorrow. Using this as an excuse, he was clearly trying to snatch the item. No! It's just a group of carriages, what's there to fight over? Since Emperor Huairan is in a hurry, then this consort will take a step back. Before When Fan could finish his words, Chu Luiwei, who was beside him, smiled and spoke. Because of this sentence, a crack appeared in the originally hostile atmosphere. Everyone turned to look at him. Who couldn't tell that the fight for the carriage was a fight for status? Was she really going to admit defeat so easily? When Fan could not help but remind him in a low voice. Do you really want to do this? This is... Chu Luiwei didn't seem to care about the gazes around him. Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled brightly. That's right. Anyway, we're not in a hurry today, so what's the harm in taking a step back? We're all here for the invitation, so isn't it good to be happy? Why make things unpleasant over such a small matter? After hearing this, everyone felt that Chu Luiwei was really afraid of Taiyu dynasty, which was why she was willing to compromise. For a moment, a trace of disdain appeared on many people's faces. They had heard that the Tianling dynasty had suffered a great loss, and now it seemed that it was true. They hadn't even officially entered Linzhou City, and they were already being bullied like this. Wouldn't they be trampled on in the future? This Shangguan, you didn't seem like a good person, Tan Taichen smiled and cupped his hands. Then this consort will thank you in advance. Chu Luiwei smiled and nodded, as if she really didn't care. Then, Tan Taichen led his people to the 4th carriage. Tan Tairuoli sneered and glanced at Chu Luiwei disdainfully when she brushed past her. It seems that some people really don't understand that even if they're all emperors, there's still a difference between them. Shangguan, you didn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as them. Chang Wanzhou's wrist twitched slightly, as if he was about to attack. Chu Luiwei glanced at them and signaled them to calm down. The silent and oppressive atmosphere made them even more sullen. When Fan looked apologetic and said in a low voice, I'm sorry. It's all my fault for being too incompetent. Chu Luiyue shook her head and walked toward the carriage on the right. Let's go too. Tan Taichen and the others quickly reached the most luxurious carriage. Just as he was about to get in, he heard a clear voice again. Emperor Huairan, please wait. Tan Taichen turned his head and saw Chu Luiyue standing beside the carriage and looking over with a smile. This consort has never been to Lin province before and has never met anyone from the Dark North imperial family. This time, Emperor Huairan wants to meet the Dark North Emperor first to play chess and chat with him. For the sake of this carriage, please introduce this consort to him and put in a few good words. This way, when we officially meet in the future, this consort can have a few more words with him. Tan Taichen was stunned. He didn't say that he would enter the palace today. After all, the Dark North Emperor's status was slightly higher than his, and he wasn't someone he could meet just because he wanted to. Now that Shang Guanyu said this, wouldn't it be inappropriate if he didn't go today? But this carriage had already been snatched. He vaguely felt that he had jumped into the trap that the other party had dug. He couldn't jump, but he also could not jump. Digression, I'm not sure about the time. Sorry. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 935. Tan Taichen was inwardly annoyed. This Shang Guanyu might look harmless on the surface, but who knew that she was full of evil tricks? The moment she said those words, she left him with no way out. Her meaning was clear. When she met the Dark North Emperor, she would definitely bring up today's matter. Although it felt good to snatch a good carriage, it wouldn't be nice if others knew about it. Tan Taichen gritted his teeth. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Chu Luiyue blinked and teased him with a half-smile. What? Is Emperor Huairan unwilling to help with such a small matter? Tan Taichen had no choice but to say, why would I? It's just a small matter. I'll help if I can. However, I'm not feeling well today. Whether I'll go to the palace to meet you is another matter. Yin Hao hurriedly said, Emperor Huairan must be exhausted from the long journey, right? I'll send you to your residence to rest first. With this excuse, Tan Taichen's expression improved. He nodded and boarded the carriage. When the curtain fell, it blocked the view of Chu Luiyue and the others. Tan Taichen heaved a sigh of relief. He leaned against the wall of the carriage and frowned in annoyance. This Shang Guanyu doesn't seem to be as easy to deal with as it seems. After these two confrontations, the two sides could be considered to have formed a grudge. Today, she made a fuss about the carriage incident. Who knows what she'll do in the future? It's better to be on guard. After Tan Taichen boarded the carriage, Tan Tai Ruoli and the others also boarded the carriages behind. Let's go. At Yin Hao's command, the carriages drove toward the city gate. However, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed like they were fleeing. When Fan looked at Chu Luiyue in surprise. Although the new emperor of the Tianling dynasty looked to be only 16 or 17 years old, she seemed to be quite scheming and resourceful. She was able to talk and laugh in front of so many people and force that old fox Tan Taichen to the point of speechlessness. Normal people couldn't do that. He couldn't help but change his opinion of Chu Luiyue. His attitude became more respectful, and he wanted to apologize with an apologetic expression. I'm to blame for this matter, it's not your fault. Chu Luiyue glanced at the carriage in the distance and smiled faintly. They're just trying to intimidate me. Without Tan Taichen's connivance, Yin Hao would not dare to rob her openly no matter how arrogant he was. Unfortunately, I don't fall for that trick. This time, she would give them a small counterattack. If Tan Taichen was tactful and behaved himself, she would let it go. But if they didn't, when that time comes, they would. All right, let's get going. Chu Luiyue said as she got into the carriage. Elder Chen Ku and the others got into the carriage one after another. Then, she lifted the curtain and glanced at Wen Fan. By the way, since we're in Lin City, you'll be in charge of all our affairs. Then I have a request. Wen Fan straightened his body subconsciously and asked respectfully, please say it. Wen Fan will do his best. Chu Luiyue's red lips curled slightly. It's not a difficult request. But if the same thing happens again, you don't have to worry. Just fight back. I'll bear the consequences. She came to Linzhou City to rescue her father from the tiger's den, not to be wronged and bullied by others. Wen Fan was startled by the coldness between her eyebrows. Suddenly, he felt as if he had eaten a tranquilizer in his heart. Chu Liuyue's lips curved into a smile as she looked up at the towering city gate in the distance. Let's go. After passing through the city gate, the carriages continued to move forward. Tan Taichen sat in the carriage with his eyes closed, deep in thought. Gradually, he heard all kinds of noises around him. It was very lively. They must have entered a bustling city. However, the noises made Tan Taichen even more frustrated. He wanted to relax and have a good rest in the carriage, but the scene just now kept replaying in his mind. He was checkmated by a mere Shangguanyu. He felt so aggrieved no matter how he thought about it. Initially, he only wanted to teach them a lesson and let them know who they could and could not afford to offend. However, he didn't expect that Shangguanyu would take advantage of the situation to make a fuss. Before he even got into the carriage, she had already thought of a way to complain to the Dark North Emperor in front of everyone. If he had known, he wouldn't have snatched the carriage. What a waste of time. At this moment, the carriage finally stopped. Yin Hao's voice came from outside. Your Majesty, we've arrived. You may get off the carriage. Tan Taichen shook his head and threw the messy content to the back of his mind. Then, he lifted the curtain and got off the carriage. After he stood still, he raised his head and looked in front of him. When he saw the situation in front of him, he was surprised. This is, Your Majesty, this is the resting place that the Crown Prince ordered for all of you to prepare. Yin Hao said with a fawning expression. This time, we prepared a total of 4 courtyards in the palace. Each of the 4 great empires will live in one. However, this is the most spacious and luxurious of the 4 courtyards. Back then, there were quite a few ancestors who had lived here. Not to mention, the Crown Prince personally ordered people to renovate it a few years ago. This place can be said to be the best one. When Tan Taichen saw the extraordinarily luxurious door, he already knew that this courtyard was extraordinary. When he heard this, he couldn't hide his excitement. This is the Crown Prince's special place for me? Of course. Yin Hao smiled fawningly. If it wasn't specially designated, those who came earlier would have already moved in. Obviously, this place was reserved for the Taiyu dynasty. In fact, the 2 dynasties that came earlier were stronger than the Taiyu dynasty. Unfortunately, he couldn't beat the other 2 and had to compete with Wen Fan in the end. He didn't expect this place to be reserved for them by the Crown Prince. This was really a stroke of luck. Although Yin Hao didn't know why the Crown Prince would do this, he was still very happy. As long as he could serve them well, he would be able to achieve great things in the future. Please, Yin Hao said eagerly. Tan Taichen looked calm. However, the slight smile on his face and the expectant look in his eyes revealed that he was very excited and happy about this matter. Normally, an emperor wouldn't be too interested in the place where other emperors lived before. However, this place was different. This was the courtyard where the emperor of the Baiming dynasty lived before. To him, this was no doubt an intangible honor. If he could live in this courtyard, he would be respected in front of the other empires. He straightened his clothes and walked forward with his head held high. However, he was stopped when he reached the door. Clang. 2 spears crossed each other. The guard in charge of guarding the door said coldly, I'm sorry, this place is not reserved for you. Digression. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 936. How dare you? Yin Hao's expression changed when he saw the situation, and he shouted, Do you know who is standing here? However, the 2 guards' expressions did not change. They were still expressionless. The residence of the Taiyu dynasty is on the street next door, not here. Yin Hao choked. They knew Tan Taichen's identity, but they were still so insistent. Could it be impossible? You must have made a mistake. Yin Hao stepped forward and tried to argue. There were 4 courtyards in total. The first 2 were already occupied, so there were only 2 left. As for the remaining 2, it was obvious that this place was better. Only the people from the Taiyu dynasty and the Tianling dynasty had not moved in yet. Wasn't it obvious who should live in the better courtyards? However, these 2 guards were in charge of guarding the courtyards. They were not weak and were not afraid of Jianghu. Master Yin, we are just following orders. Please don't make things difficult for us. Jianghu wanted to say more, but Tan Taichen could not help but laugh and speak. Say, if this place isn't for the Taiyu dynasty to live in, could it be for the Tianling dynasty to live in? As his voice fell, the 2 guards actually nodded in unison. That's right. Tan Taichen's remaining words were stuck in his throat. Even Jianghu's mouth was agape, as if he had swallowed an egg. Well, what? It seems like this place is for me? Just as both sides fell into dead silence, a familiar voice came from behind them. The few of them turned around and saw Chu Luiwei lightly jump down from the horse carriage. The street was wide enough for 2 carriages to travel side by side. Therefore, their carriage stopped beside Tan Taichen's carriage. Chu Luiwei and the others had heard their conversation clearly. She leaned against the carriage and crossed her arms. Her lips curled into an evil smile. She was born with good looks, and this smile of hers was even more beautiful, moving one's heart. What nonsense are you talking about? At this point, Tantai Ruoli had also heard those words. When she saw Chu Luiwei's smile, she felt that it was very ironic. She hurriedly walked to the door and hollered at the 2 guards. Orders? Whose orders are you following? The 2 guards frowned and glanced at her. Of course it's on the Crown Prince's orders. For the opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain this time, the invitations from the few great empires were all handled by the Crown Prince. Naturally, the accommodation arrangements were no exception. The Crown Prince had specifically instructed that this was for the Tianling dynasty. After saying that, the 2 guards bowed to Chu Luiwei. They were much more respectful and polite. His Highness the Crown Prince said that you can rest assured and stay here. If you need anything, just ask. This attitude compared to just now was like heaven and earth. Chu Luiwei rubbed her chin. The smile on her lips deepened, and she immediately walked forward. Her well-tailored and exquisite boots fell on the ground, making a rhythmic sound. It was like a heavy hammer hitting the hearts of Tan Taichen and the others. She walked to the front of the door and stood beside the few people. Immediately, she seemed to blink her eyes in embarrassment. So it's really for me? I thought you were joking just now. Look at this. How embarrassing is this? Huairan Emperor, I didn't want to fight with you for this. Please don't misunderstand. As she spoke, she glanced at Tan Taichen. Sigh, it wasn't easy to come here. In the end, we still have to return to another street. How troublesome. Everyone, I'm really sorry. If we had arrived first, we might not have made such a joke. Tan Taichen felt like he had been slapped in the face. They were the ones who had snatched the carriage first, but now they had clearly shot themselves in the foot. They had lost all face. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have made such an unnecessary move. Tantai Ruoli couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't help but sneer and look at the 2 guards. You said this was the Crown Prince's order. Do you have any evidence? Don't tell me you guys acted on your own and did it on purpose. The moment she said that, the aura around the 2 guards became dangerous. Even Jianghu couldn't help but complain. Did this Tantai Ruoli have a brain? Not to mention Lin Province, even in the entire Baiming dynasty, no one dared to falsify the Crown Prince's order. No one dared to go against his will. Unless they were tired of living and wanted to drag their entire clan down with them. She said that without any respect for the Crown Prince. Eldest Princess Tendai, please be careful with your words. One of the guards warned her sternly. Tantai Ruoli was shocked by the aura. The arrogance and willfulness she had disappeared instantly. She subconsciously took a step back and her face turned pale. I was just asking, these people were really scary. She only said one sentence, Eldest Princess, please don't say anything else. Otherwise, it will only make things worse. Even Jianghu couldn't help but speak up. It was fine if she wanted to die, but she shouldn't drag others into it. Seeing that the Crown Prince was involved in this matter, Jianghu didn't dare to ask any more questions. He quickly begged for mercy. Please don't misunderstand. It's all my fault that I didn't ask around properly. We'll leave now. However, I don't want to tell the crown prince about this matter. It will only make him more worried. I'll treat you two to a drink next time. How about it? After a long period of humility and flattery, the two guards finally nodded their heads. Jianghu heaved a sigh of relief. He moved closer to Tan Taichen and said in a low voice, let's go back now. I'll bring you to your residence. It's not far away. Tan Taichen had been the emperor for his entire life. He had never encountered such a cowardly situation where he had to beg for mercy before he could leave. Even if he wasn't the one begging for mercy, he had completely lost his face. His face was burning with pain. He wished he could find a hole to hide in. He took a deep breath. Let's go. As soon as he turned around, Chu Luwei asked with a smile, Hey, why don't you come in and have a seat? Tan Taichen's heart was blocked. His face was full of excitement. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. Finally, he suppressed the anger in his heart and said coldly without turning his head, No need. After that, he quickly got into the carriage and left the street. Chu Luwei waved and smiled brightly. Come often when you're free. Tan Taichen almost vomited blood. Digression. The carriage number was 4 and 5. It was wrong, it has been corrected. That's all for today's update. I'll continue tomorrow. It's so big. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 937. The people from the Taiyu dynasty didn't say anything else and left quickly. No matter how one looked at them, they looked rather pathetic. Chu Luiwei only chuckled when the carriages had completely disappeared. She retracted her gaze and looked at the two guards. This way, please. The two guards each took a step back and invited them in respectfully. Chu Luiwei's eyes darkened. She didn't know what that Jun Jiuqing was thinking. He purposely left the best courtyard for her. On the surface, it looked like he was taking care of her, but he was actually digging a hole for her. Today's incident would definitely spread quickly. It wasn't just the Taiyu dynasty. The other two dynasties would definitely be unhappy with them if they heard the news. The weakest person occupied the best spot. This kind of thing would cause disputes no matter where it was. Moreover, this was related to the reputation of each dynasty. Who knew what kind of trouble it would cause in the future? He was purposely pushing her in front of everyone. However, Chu Luwen narrowed her eyes. Since the other party was so blatantly provoking, she would just accept it. She took a step forward and stepped through the door. Lu Yu, do you know that Prince Baiming? Why is he doing this? After entering the courtyard, Mu Hongyu couldn't help but move closer and ask softly when she saw the magnificent surroundings. Chu Luiwei shook her head. I don't know him. I've never seen him before. Then what's his reason for doing this? Mu Hongyu looked around and felt a little worried. This place is great, but wouldn't we become targets by doing this publicly? Chu Luiwei smiled. Even someone as straightforward as Mu Hongyu could see the other party's intention. It was obvious how straightforward his thoughts were. It's a waste not to take benefits that are delivered to our doorstep. Chu Luiwei raised her hand and pointed as she walked. A few Dark North emperors have lived here before. It's a place where the dragon chi gathers. For them to like it so much, it's enough to prove that this place isn't ordinary. Just the fact that there was a level 9 Xian formation in this courtyard was already a huge gain. If you cultivate here, your cultivation speed will increase by quite a bit. Exactly. Others have already bullied us. Could it be that we still have to swallow this humiliation? Is right, we are definitely staying here. Elder Su Jin's eyes lit up. As he spoke, he quickly walked inside. I'll go take a look at the Xian formation first. You, remember to draw those Xian formations for me later. Just as he finished speaking, the figure had already disappeared. Sigh. Xiao Ran wanted to call out to her, but she hesitated and glanced at Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei held back his laughter. Once Master Su Jin started looking at the profound formation, she became intoxicated and couldn't care about anything else. Elder Xiao Ran, please take care of her. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Xiao Ran's face, but she still looked at her gratefully and chased after her. Swish. Jian Fengqi waved his fan, looking confident and unrestrained. His pair of icy eyes were filled with curiosity and gossip as he looked at Chu Luiwei. Sigh, I say, you really don't have any relationship with this Jun Jiuqing? Chu Luiwei glanced at him coldly. I can let you have some relationship with him. Jian Fengqi felt a chill run down his spine, and he immediately retreated tactfully. Ha! This young master was just joking. Joking. Actually, Jinghong asked this young master to ask. You and Jinghong? Just as he was about to argue, Jian Fengqi covered his mouth. Let's go. Let's cultivate. After this, we will have to compete with the geniuses from the other empires. It won't be good if we lose and embarrass ourselves. After speaking, she pulled Yuan Jinghong and quickly left. Your Majesty, I will also take my leave first. Wu Ming said respectfully. Although he was not the weakest among the people who came with him, he could vaguely sense that these people were extremely talented. After only staying with them for a few days, he could sense that the aura of these people had improved significantly. This made him nervous, and he secretly made up his mind to cultivate more here. Chu Luiwei smiled and nodded. Wu Ming was the eldest disciple of the Master of Destiny Mansion. He was talented, and more importantly, he was down-to-earth and serious. This was also one of the reasons why she brought him along. Judging from his behavior, he clearly felt a sense of crisis and planned to cultivate and improve his strength. Of course, this was what she wanted to see. Now that he could stay here, it would be more beneficial for his cultivation. He might even be able to gain the upper hand in the upcoming competition. Wu Ming responded and left. Mu Hongyu then followed Jian Fengqi and the others, intending to learn from each other. Recently, she had learned some new moves from her master, and she was itching for a fight. After the few people left, Elder Chun Ku asked hesitantly, Your Majesty, are you really not worried? Although there are benefits to living here, but he always felt that this trip seemed to be a little unsettling. It was as if someone had already arranged everything. Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows slightly, and there was a hint of slyness at the corner of her eyes, but there was a cold glint in the bottom of her eyes. What is there to worry about? I dare to come to Lin Province, so I dare to stay in this side courtyard. She lifted her feet and walked forward, her shoulders straight, and her aura awe-inspiring. I don't care what kind of demons and ghosts they are, I can suppress them. The benefits of living here, I will definitely take them. Baiming Royal Palace. Hunting ground. Ordinary royal palaces did not have hunting grounds, and most of them were set up outside the palace. But in the Baiming Royal Palace, there was a huge hunting ground in the palace. This hunting ground occupied an area of the aurora, and the edges were high fences made of refined iron. Each of them was as thick as an adult's thigh, and they were arranged neatly. There were also barbs on them, and if one was not careful, a large piece of flesh would be hooked off. If one looked carefully, one could see spots of blood on the fences. Some had been there for a long time and had already dried up. Some seemed to have just been left behind, and it was extremely red. The entire hunting ground was emitting a strong smell of blood. In addition, there was a barrier above the hunting ground that completely enveloped it. Not a single bird or beast could break free from it. At this moment, there was a person lying in the middle of the hunting ground. Blood was flowing from his neck, and it flowed all over the ground. He lay there motionless, and he seemed to be on the verge of death. If not for the weak rise and fall of his chest, one would think that he was already dead. But in fact, he was in a state worse than death, because a black and white bird had used its claws to tear open his chest and was devouring his heart. Beside him, several magical beasts formed a circle and were staring at this scene greedily. But even though they were drooling, they did not dare to take a step forward, because there was a man standing outside the fences. Your Highness, the people from the Tianling dynasty have already stayed in that side courtyard. A guard quickly went forward, knelt on one knee, and reported respectfully. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 938. Is she satisfied? Jun Jiuqing stood with his hands behind his back. There seemed to be a lazy smile in his voice. You should be satisfied. The guard said hesitantly. Jun Jiuqing turned his head slightly, revealing a perfect side profile that seemed to have been carved by a knife. His sword-like eyebrows were slanted to his temples, his nose was high, and his upper lip was slightly curled into a seductive arc. It added a touch of devilish charm. Vaguely, there seemed to be a touch of devilish red in his eyes, which were half covered by his long eyelashes. Even though only half of his face was visible, it was not hard to imagine how devilish his face was. This low voice dragged out the last syllable, and there was a touch of danger in it. The guard immediately lowered his head and hurriedly explained. It's the people from the Taiyu dynasty. There was a misunderstanding with them. After that, he recounted everything that had happened earlier from the beginning to the end. Jun Jiuqing was silent for a moment after he finished listening. Then he chuckled. I didn't expect Tan Taichen to be so impatient. I really overestimated him. Your Highness is the mastermind. Everything is under your control, the guard said hurriedly. Then, do you want me to send someone? No need. Jun Jiuqing raised his hand and stopped the guard. He seemed to have thought of something, and the smile on his face deepened. Her temper really hasn't changed at all, the guard was shocked. He was the Crown Prince's confidant. He could more or less figure out the Crown Prince's temper and thoughts. But this time, he could not guess the Crown Prince's plan at all. The Crown Prince seemed to have a special relationship with the newly ascended Shangguanyu of the Tianling dynasty. If he was good to her, he would let her live in that courtyard so openly. If he was not good to her, when he mentioned that person, his tone was a little more interested. Who else could receive such treatment from the Crown Prince in the past? He could not figure it out and did not dare to think too much about it. He could only do whatever the Crown Prince asked him to do. However, one thing was for sure. Shangguanyu wasn't someone who could be easily provoked. Let's go. Just wait and see. Jun Jiuqing said lazily. The guard quickly retreated. Jun Jiuqing looked up. In the hunting ground, the man's heart was almost completely devoured, and he was completely silent. The black and white bird suddenly stretched its neck and screeched. A rank 7 martial artist's 5 internal organs were connected, and the heart was the place that accumulated the most power. After devouring the heart, its aura naturally grew stronger as well. Jun Jiuqing's voice was beautiful, as if it was soaked in alcohol. All right, let's go. With that, the bird flapped its wings and flew away. In an instant, the surrounding magical beasts that had been waiting for a long time all pounced forward. Blood splattered everywhere. Not long after, they began to fight among themselves. The bird stood at the top of a fence and looked at the scene with a fierce look in its eyes. It was high up in the air. The scene was extremely bloody and brutal, but Jun Jiuqing seemed to be used to it. He gently touched the corner of his eyes, as if he was satisfied and satisfied. Then he turned around and left. Jianghu led the people from the Taiyu dynasty to the villa on the street next door. He was trembling with fear and did not dare to speak too much. When they reached the entrance, he braced himself and asked Tan Taichen and the rest to come down. Your Majesty, we are here. Tan Taichen and the rest got down from the carriage and quickly looked around. Their faces became gloomier. With just one look, they could tell that this villa was obviously a few levels lower than the previous one, regardless of whether it was in terms of scale or other aspects. What kind of lousy place is this? Tantai Ruoli could not help but curse. They were from the Taiyu dynasty. Even if they were not as noble as the Baiming dynasty, it was too degrading to live in such a place. He's looking down on us. If everyone lived in such a place, it would be fine. However, the people from the Tianling dynasty lived in a much better place than them. How could they be calm with such a difference in treatment? Jianghu's head was covered in cold sweat. Princess Tantai, this villa was personally arranged by the Crown Prince. It is also the Baiming dynasty's villa. How can it be a lousy place? Don't say such things again in the future. As he spoke, he could not help but say to Tan Taichen, Your Majesty, you should at least say something. If they kept talking like this, they would get into trouble sooner or later. Did they think that this was the territory of the Taiyu dynasty? Although Tan Taichen was also frustrated, he had been an emperor for many years. He knew what to say and what not to say. He gave Tantai Ruoli a warning look and said coldly, Ruoli, have you forgotten what father told you before? He told her to keep a low profile. She had to keep a low profile. If what she said just now reached Prince Baiming's ears, it would not do them any good. Tantai Ruoli reluctantly kept her mouth shut. The rest of the people also felt conflicted because of the series of events that happened. They all kept quiet. It was already embarrassing enough that things had turned out this way. If they continued to harp on it, wouldn't they become a laughingstock? Seeing that they had all quieted down, Yin Hao led them in. After settling them down, Yin Hao took his leave and went back to report. As soon as he left, Tantai Ruoli could not help but curse. This is so infuriating. So infuriating. Her eyes were burning with anger, and her face was red because of anger. Father, we can't just let this go. Tan Taichen sat in his chair with a solemn expression. Then what do you want? They've already made it clear that this was all arranged by Prince Darknorth. Could it be that you're going to find trouble with him? Tantai Ruoli was speechless. Of course, she knew that he was someone she could not afford to offend. Now, more than half of the power in the Baiming dynasty was in his hands. It was not an exaggeration to say that he could cover the sky with one hand. Didn't they say that Prince Baiming has always been ruthless and decisive? Did he arrange this because the people of the Tianling dynasty had some connections with him? Otherwise, she really could not understand how the weakest Tianling had the right to enjoy the best treatment. Logically speaking, the Tianling dynasty did not even have the right to come to the opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain. Even if they didn't have the right, they still came. Tan Taichen's expression was solemn. If that Shangguan Yu is really acquainted with Prince Baiming, then this is really troublesome. The room fell into a dead silence. After a while, a young man's voice sounded. Your Majesty, let them be arrogant for now. When the ancient Phoenix Mountain opens, we will know whether they are strong or weak, right? They lived in the best place. If they ended up in the last place, wouldn't that be even more shameful and embarrassing? Tan Taichen's expression changed slightly. Tantai Ruoli's eyes lit up. Yes. Father, what Zifeng said makes sense. Let them be arrogant first. When the time comes, we will use our strength to give them a slap. Let's see if that Shangguan Yu still has the face to be arrogant. Wonderful book room. Chapter 939. Night fell, and a few stars sprinkled down from the black night sky. It was silent both inside and outside the courtyard. Only the night breeze that passed through the hall brought a hint of coolness. Chu Luiwei was cultivating in her room. Her eyes were tightly shut, and she sat cross-legged with her aura lingering around her. Occasionally, scarlet and transparent flames could be seen darting out and dancing around her body. After a moment, she raised her right hand. Her fair and slender finger tapped lightly in the air. A streak of silver force surged out and quickly transformed into several streaks of light that intertwined to form a pattern. Then, she waved her left hand lightly, and several streaks of force also surged out. These silver streaks of light outlined the first strange pattern, which immediately connected with the previous one. If Elder Su Jin and the others were here, they would be able to see that this Xian formation was very similar to the level 9 Xian formation they saw at the border. Because this was what Chu Luiwei had copied based on its original appearance. To ordinary people who did not have the talent to become a Xian master, Xian formations were just a bunch of strange lines and patterns to them. No matter how they looked at it, it was very difficult to remember. Because Xian formations had their own rules, and it was not as simple as memorizing it in a book. The complexity of a level 9 Xian formation was even more unimaginable. Even a high-level Xian master would feel dizzy after looking at it for a while, and it was impossible to memorize it. However, Chu Luiwei was different. She had already cultivated to the level of a level 8 Xian master in her previous life. Although she had changed her physical body and her strength was limited, her cognitive ability was still at the level of a level 8 Xian master. In addition, she originally had astonishing talent in this area, so memorizing those level 9 Xian formations was not a difficult task. What she needed to do now was to simulate this Xian formation as much as possible. Time passed by bit. Chu Luiwei traced it bit by bit according to the pattern that was engraved in her mind. The countless silver streaks of light in front of her also gradually outlined the rough outline of the Xian formation. The lustrous light reflected on her face, which was like porcelain and jade, clear and clean. Thousands of miles away, the clear and crystalline waves on the boundless azure water surface sparkled. Several islands floated above it, and the thick force condensed into a white mist that lingered around it. It was like a paradise. Above the void, a golden dot of light suddenly appeared. Following that, the golden light rapidly expanded, forming a golden halo. Space fluctuated and rippled. After that, a tall figure walked out from within. It was Wuxia. At this time, he was wearing a black brocade robe, and the aura around him was cold. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the gentleness of the seventh prince had disappeared. What replaced it was an indifference and coldness that made one's heart tremble. The suppression on his body disappeared, and his aura instantly soared. At first glance, he was like a god of death that had fought his way out of hell. His blood and chi were awe-inspiring. Woo, the horn sounded. "Welcome back, Your Highness." At this moment, countless people looked in the direction of Wuxia and knelt down in unison. Wuxia's figure moved, and he headed for the floating island in the middle. He walked across the water, but there was still a small distance between his feet and the surface of the water. With one hand behind his back, he seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll. However, in just a few steps, he had already walked a great distance. When he arrived in front of the island, he leaped and soared into the sky. Then he floated back down. His tall figure was reflected on the black jade slab. Wuxia continued to walk forward. The soldiers in charge of guarding on both sides bowed respectfully. At the front was Wuxia's palace. This place was heavily guarded, and ordinary people could not get close at all. Usually it was very quiet, but today, there seemed to be someone waiting outside the main hall. When he heard the commotion, he also knelt down in the direction of Wuxia. Wuxia took a look and narrowed his eyes. The person looked familiar, as if it was someone he knew. When he got closer, Wuxia confirmed his guess. As expected, this person was none other than 36 revered Elder Ming's only nephew, Ming Yao. His position in the clan was not low now. As an elder, he was second only to the clan leader. Usually, they would rarely appear here. Even if there was something, they would look for 36 revered Elder Ming. There was almost no one who looked for Wuxia directly like this. Wuxia stopped in his tracks when he was in front of Wuxia. "Elder Ming Yao, why are you here today?" "Greetings, Your Highness Saint." Ming Yao quickly bowed. A guard at the side cupped his fists and reported with some difficulty, "Elder Ming has been here for 3 days." "Your Highness, Elder Ming Yao has been waiting here since 3 days ago. He said that he has something important to report to you personally." Wuxia looked up slightly. "Where is 36 revered Elder Ming?" "Your Highness, 36 revered Elder Ming has been in seclusion for the past few days. He purposely picked a time when 36 revered Elder Ming was not around." Wuxia's thin lips curled up slightly. "Elder Ming Yao, please get up. If there is anything, just say it." Ming Yao thanked him first before getting up. However, facing Wuxia alone like this, he couldn't help but feel nervous. He tried his best to pull out a smile. "Your Highness, actually, Ming Yao is here to represent the wishes of many clans." Wuxia raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at him indifferently. Ming Yao swallowed his saliva with difficulty and braced himself to say, "This? It has been a few years since you ascended to the position of the saint, but the position of the princess consort is still empty. Coincidentally, your birthday is coming soon. We were thinking, why don't you take this opportunity to take a look?" Digression, continued at 6 p.m. I accidentally posted the 3rd chapter at the front. Everyone make do with it first. The editor is not working today, so I can't edit it. I will edit it in 2 days. Ma'am mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 940. As soon as he said that, Ming Yao suddenly felt the surrounding air turn cold. It was bone-chilling. For a moment, his sharp 6th sense almost made his legs go soft, and he directly knelt down. But this kind of biting cold aura was fleeting, as if it had never appeared. Ming Yao gathered his courage and quickly looked up, only to see Rong Xiu's cold expression. His eyes were deep, and he couldn't tell what he was thinking. He hurriedly retracted his gaze and lowered his head, his heart on tenterhooks. Who didn't know that His Highness Holy Sun didn't get close to women? Ever since he became the Holy Sun, in these few years, who knew how many people had mentioned this matter? But every time, it was directly rejected by him. Until one time, an honorable elder really couldn't stand it anymore and secretly arranged for 2 women to serve him. Rong Xiu didn't fall for this trick, but he couldn't refuse this honorable elder's face, so he directly sent the 2 women to do chores. Originally, it was nothing much, but those 2 women couldn't even enter the main hall, so they were unwilling to accept it. They actually plotted together to drug Rong Xiu's tea, wanting to use this to curry favor with him. But these 2 people didn't expect that Rong Xiu himself was extremely skilled in medicine, and that cup of tea was smashed to pieces on the spot. And those 2 women were directly dragged out and beaten to death in front of everyone. The most important thing was that Rong Xiu even specially invited that honorable elder to personally come and take a look. That honorable elder knew that he was in the wrong, so he didn't dare to say anything after being tricked by Rong Xiu. After the matter was over, he directly went into seclusion. This incident spread like wildfire. Everyone knew that Rong Xiu was cruel and merciless, and he was not soft-hearted even when it came to women. Hence, they all gave up on such thoughts. After that, Rong Xiu was quiet for a long time. No matter how anxious the people below were, they didn't dare to do anything out of line. But as time passed, Rong Xiu had been the Holy Sun for a few years, but he still hadn't chosen a princess consort, so everyone's thoughts finally became active again. The position of princess consort was a highly sought-after position. Who wouldn't want it for themselves? If a girl from any clan could marry Rong Xiu as his princess consort, the entire clan would ascend together with her. When the benefits of something were greater than what was expected, the courage and motivation people would have for it would be greater. Ming Yao dared to come this time because, on one hand, he had the support of 36 respected elder Ming. On the other hand, it was because this reason was too legitimate and could not be denied. In the past, Rong Xiu did not want to marry her. Perhaps it was because he had just taken the throne and his political power was not stable, so he did not want to act rashly. But now, he had almost secured his position. If he still insisted on not marrying, he would not be able to continue. It seems that Elder Ming Yao and the others are very concerned about Ai's marriage. After a short moment of silence, Rong Xiu spoke. Upon hearing this, Ming Yao was delighted. He wasn't angry, but he didn't reject it either. Was there a chance? He hurriedly bowed and said, "Your Highness, the Holy Sun, is the backbone of all the clans. Your princess consort position has been pending for a long time, so everyone is naturally very concerned about it. This time, Ming Yao came here not only for you, but also for all the clans." Upon hearing this, Rong Xiu seemed to be quite interested and asked, "Oh? So, it seems that Elder Ming Yao already has a plan?" Upon hearing this, Ming Yao was instantly encouraged and hurriedly said, "Your Highness, to be honest, although you have never taken the initiative to consider these matters, we have to consider for you. We have already chosen the most outstanding girls among the clans. As long as you nod your head and invite them to meet you at your birthday banquet, we will definitely be able to choose a girl that you are satisfied with." Rong Xiu didn't deny it and smiled. "How many clans are there? I didn't pay much attention to them before." Ming Yao said a string of names. Other than them, there were also a few other clans that had good relations with them. They were all involved in this matter. Rong Xiu listened patiently and suddenly asked, "It seems that you have been preparing for a long time. Why haven't I heard 36 respected Elder Ming mention it?" Ming Yao suddenly felt guilty, and his eyes flickered as he laughed. 36 respected Elder Ming is usually elusive. How would we dare to bother him with these matters? In fact, when they came to meet 36 respected Elder Ming previously, they had already mentioned this matter to him. However, they were directly rejected by 36 respected Elder Ming and were warned not to even think about these matters. Rong Xiu was the Holy Sun, and he naturally had his own decisions on these matters. If anyone dared to interfere with his matters, they would be courting death. However, after Ming Yao and the rest returned, they still weren't willing to give up this opportunity after thinking about it. What if Rong Xiu picked a girl from their clan? The reason why their clan could reach their current status was all because of 36 respected Elder Ming. However, he was old after all, and in most cases, he wouldn't speak up for their clan. Instead, he would try his best to avoid arousing suspicion. This made them faintly disappointed. They felt that 36 respected Elder Ming was doing this purely to protect his position and win the Holy Sun's trust. Instead of continuing like this, they might as well give it their all. Therefore, they joined forces with others to complete this matter together. This time, they took action especially when 36 respected Elder Ming wasn't around. Rong Xiu nodded in understanding. I see, his thin lips curled up slightly. What a pity. 36 respected Elder Ming had racked his brains for many years to prevent his clan from causing trouble and protect them as much as possible. However, no matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't stop it. Once a person was greedy, they would easily lose their brains. Seeing Rong Xiu smile, Ming Yao didn't feel any danger at all. Instead, he was secretly happy, thinking that this was a sure thing. Since that's the case, why don't we invite the other clans to participate as well? Rong Xiu said indifferently. What? Ming Yao almost twisted his tongue. He looked at Rong Xiu in shock, almost suspecting that he had heard wrongly. Other clans? There are still 2 months before Ai's birthday. At that time, all the clans will come to celebrate. Wouldn't it be more convenient to do it together? Looking at Rong Xiu's expression, he didn't seem to be joking. Ming Yao suddenly felt that things seemed to be developing in a direction that was out of his control. But this was something that the few clans had discussed and agreed upon. If everyone came to participate, then what advantage would they have? There were so many clans. Who knew who Rong Xiu would choose? One had to know that there were countless women who wanted to marry Rong Xiu. In the past, because he didn't have such thoughts, no one dared to say anything. However, once he said that he was going to choose a princess consort, who knew how intense the competition would be? If he chose someone else in the end, this trip would be considered as a waste of time. Ming Yao wanted to object, but the person standing in front of him was the most honorable Holy Sun. How could he dare to say, no? In the end, he could only bite the bullet and agree. Everything will follow the Holy Sun's orders. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 941. In the evening, Yan Qing rushed back from outside and went straight to the main hall. When he entered the room, Yan Qing saw Rong Xiu sitting leisurely by the window, playing chess. Yan Qing immediately saluted. Master. Rong Xiu stared at the chessboard, as if thinking about the next move. He didn't even raise his head and said, yes. How's the investigation going? Replying to Master, this subordinate has already obtained a part of the evidence. The rest can be obtained immediately when the time is right. Rong Xiu nodded with satisfaction. I always trust you when you do things. All he had to do was wait. Yes. Yan Qing got up and stood aside. He couldn't help but look at his master again, thinking of the rumors he heard when he came back. His heart was like being scratched by a cat. But his master always had his own reasons for doing things. This time, it should be the same. What do you want to ask? Just say it. Rong Xiu said lightly. Yan Qing hesitated for a moment and finally spoke. Master, there's a rumor outside that you're going to choose a princess at your birthday banquet. Is this true? Of course it's true. Rong Xiu smiled and the corner of his lips raised into a meaningful arc. No matter how bold Ming Yao is, he wouldn't dare to spread rumors about Ai. What's more, he spread the news on purpose. Otherwise, he wouldn't fly so fast as if he had wings. Yan Qing was puzzled. But madam, I also want to finalize this matter as soon as possible. Rong Xiu put down the chess piece in his hand. On the chessboard, the black and white chess pieces were clearly separated, like two dragons fighting each other. With this piece, the black dragon beheaded the white dragon instantly. Everything was settled cleanly. He leaned back with a smile on his face. I have been alone all year round, and it's indeed very lonely. It's better to give the princess position to her as soon as possible. This way, she would be able to come to his side sooner and stand side by side with him openly. It was to prevent some people from thinking about it for no reason. Baiming Empire, Lin Province. After a night of hard work, Chu Luiyue finally stopped what she was doing when the first ray of light shone in through the window. There was a huge silver barrier floating in front of her. Upon closer inspection, this barrier was formed by countless silver streams of light. It was incomparably complex, but it was also shockingly beautiful. This was clearly a replica of the Dark North Dynasty's border barrier. Even the various patterns on the Xian formations were clearly visible. She actually managed to make a complete copy of it. Chu Luiyue's face was somewhat pale, but her starry eyes were incomparably bright, faintly containing some unconcealable excitement. This was not the first time she had tried to simulate a level 9 profound formation. Back then, she had long broken through to level 8 mystic cultivation and stayed in this realm for a very long time. Although she hadn't had the time to advance to the next level, she had already delved into quite a few level 9 mystic formations. This had also laid down a solid foundation for her to be who she was today. However, this was the first time she had successfully constructed a connected level 9 mystic formation. Knock knock. The sound of knocking came from outside. "Your Majesty, we should set off for the palace." This was Wenfan's voice. Chu Luiyue replied. "Got it." With that, she waved her sleeves. The simulated barrier in front of her instantly dissipated, transforming into streaks of silver light and quickly disappearing. Chu Luiyue got up, washed up simply, changed her clothes, and went out. Seeing Chu Luiyue come out, Wenfan quickly bowed. With a hurried glance, he realized that Chu Luiyue seemed to be in good spirits, her eyes as bright as stars. Yesterday's incident didn't seem to have affected her at all. Moreover, the aura on her body seemed to have vaguely become stronger. Wenfan was secretly shocked. He had long heard that this person had a rare Tianjing Yuan meridian and was a rare genius. Unfortunately, she was harmed by someone later on, and it wasn't easy for her to come back. He originally thought that she would be much weaker than before, but now, it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. Wenfan suppressed his thoughts and respectfully invited Chu Luiyue out. Elder Chen Ku and the others also received the news and came out one after another. The convoy from yesterday was already waiting outside the door. The group of people got on the vehicles one after another and headed towards the palace. Unexpectedly, after walking out of the street and turning a corner, they bumped into the people from Taiyu Dynasty. Wenfan was at the front of the convoy and saw Yinhao at first glance. At the same time, Yinhao looked over. He recalled yesterday's incident and immediately became angry. Even his face became gloomier. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. He spat on the ground. Our convoy is in front, so we should go first. Wenfan, why don't you guys get out of the way? After years of being bullied, Wenfan subconsciously wanted to dodge when he saw Yinhao getting angry. However, just as he moved, he heard a chuckle coming from the carriage behind him. Wenfan's movement stopped. Yesterday, Sheng Guanyu had told him not to compromise. She was always there for him. This gave Wenfan a little more confidence in himself. He immediately straightened his chest, lifted his chin slightly, and stared straight at Yinhao. "I'm sorry, our street is closer to the palace, so we walked in front of you as soon as we came out. Although your convoy is in front, we're all going to enter the palace, so what's the point of being in front? If we get out of the way now, we'll only add to the trouble." He raised the long whip in his hand. Smith. The long whip fell, and the sound of it breaking through the air was heard. "You guys should just follow behind. Giddy up." Digression. After dinner, I'll update a little later. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 942. Wenfan led the carriages away, leaving a trail of dust behind him. Cough, cough. Yinhao coughed violently. His face was red and he could not help cursing. What the hell? Does he really think he has a powerful backer? In the past, Wenfan was weak and timid. He was like a little chick in front of him. If he asked him to go west, he would never dare to go east. But now, he had only been with the Tianling dynasty for a day, And he had become so arrogant. He really thought he was a big shot. The crown prince had arranged that villa for them, but that did not necessarily prove anything. The Tunling dynasty. How impressive. Tan Taichen lifted the curtain and looked at the carriages disappearing in the distance. He was expressionless. Yin Hao was afraid that he would be angry, so he quickly said, "Your Majesty, please don't take it to heart. They can be proud now, but they can't be proud forever. Only those with real strength can have the last laugh, don't you think so? If it was the Tianling dynasty of the past, they might have a chance. But now, after going through so much turmoil and exhausting so much of their vitality, it was obvious that they would be at the bottom this time. At that time, they would not have the face to be so arrogant." Tan Taichen put down the curtain and said coldly, "Let's go." The Baiming Imperial Palace occupied a large area. It was magnificent and magnificent. It was said that the Baiming dynasty had renovated the Imperial Palace to celebrate after the Taizu successfully entered the Divine Realm. In the following 1,000 years, the Baiming dynasty had been protected by the Taizu, and there had been no trouble. The country was rich and the people were strong. This made their national treasury full. Every 100 years, they could withdraw a portion of the money from the national treasury to maintain the Imperial Palace. In addition, in Linzhou City, everything related to the imperial family would receive special care. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, Linzhou City was stronger than West Hill. Chu Luwe sat in the carriage, resting with his eyes closed. At first, there were some noises coming from outside, but it gradually quieted down. However, the surrounding atmosphere seemed to be a lot colder. Then the carriage stopped. Chu Luwe opened his eyes. "We're here." When Fan stepped forward and handed over the invitation card that he had prepared. "The Tianling dynasty?" The soldier in charge of guarding the gate took the invitation card and looked at it carefully. He was shocked. The fight between the Tianling dynasty and the Taiyu dynasty for the courtyard had spread like wildfire. Many people knew that Crown Prince Baiming seemed to value the people from the Tianling dynasty a lot. Therefore, even these soldiers became nervous and didn't dare to slack off. No carriages or horses are allowed to enter the palace. Everyone, please get off the carriage and move forward. Chu Luwe lifted the curtain and jumped down from the horse carriage. She looked up slightly and took a look. Chu Luwe's heart trembled slightly. This time, she was going to take a good look at what tricks these people were trying to play. Heavenly Dragon Palace, Imperial Palace. In the center of the hall, there was a purple gold chair placed at the head of the table. That was obviously the seat of Jun Qiji, the Emperor of the North Underworld. On the lower left, there was a slightly smaller purple gold chair. Without a doubt, that was the seat of Prince Baiming, Jun Jiuqing. Generally speaking, only the Emperor had the right to sit on the purple gold chair. Jun Jiuqing was only the crown prince, but he was almost on the same level as his father. It was clear how high his status was in the North Underworld. Below it, there were 2 rows of seats on the left and right. Looking carefully, each side was divided into 2 sections. Apart from the North Underworld dynasty, there were 4 dynasties that came this time. Now, the seats on the left and right of the 4 sections were occupied. They were the Xian dynasty and the East Com dynasty that came one after another. Jun Qiji and Jun Jiuqing had not arrived yet. Apart from the 2 dynasties, there were only a few servants in the palace. The atmosphere was more relaxed. "Brother Ning, have you heard of something new yesterday?" The Xian dynasty's emperor, Gongsun Shao, held a cup of wine and asked. Ning Yuan raised his eyes slightly. His expression did not change. "Brother Gongsun, are you talking about the matter of the courtyard? Looks like Brother Ning has heard about it." Gongsun Shao laughed. "We went early yesterday. I didn't expect to miss such a wonderful show. What a pity." "There's nothing to pity. It's just a place to stay." Ning Yuan did not seem to care about this matter. Gongsun Shao sneered at the old fox in his heart. His acting skills were still the same as before. But he was not in the mood to care about this with Ning Yuan. Now, what he cared about most was the Tianling dynasty. "Brother Ning, you're wrong. This place was arranged by the crown prince himself. How can he not see it? If Jun Jiuqing wanted, he could have let them stay in the same place. But he did not. Wasn't he deliberately looking for trouble? More importantly, he was looking for trouble with the Tianling dynasty. I wonder if Brother Ning knows anything about the Tianling dynasty? Ning Yuan paused. My Eastcom dynasty is very far away from the Tianling dynasty. Naturally, I don't know much. Gong Sun Shao smiled and stroked his beard. Forget about the others, but Brother Ning should have heard of the new Tianling emperor who is coming today, right? Some time ago, those things had caused a huge commotion. It was hard for them not to know. Brother Ning, aren't you curious about this person at all? Ning Yuan's lips moved. Just as he was about to speak, he heard an announcement. The Tianling dynasty's Emperor Yuanshi, Shanghai Yu has arrived. The entire hall instantly fell silent. Everyone turned their heads and looked outside the door. A group of people was walking toward them. The person in front was a woman who looked to be about 15 or 16 years old. She was slender and tall, dressed in red. From afar, she looked like a red cloud floating over. As she approached, the hall was suddenly filled with gasps of astonishment. Countless people's eyes flashed with amazement. Beautiful. This woman was incomparably beautiful and exuded a noble aura. There was only one word to describe it: beautiful. She just stood there, and everything around her seemed to be overshadowed. Many people were secretly shocked. They didn't expect the rumored Shangguan Yu to be so beautiful. The people sitting in this hall were the most distinguished people of each dynasty. What kind of beauty had they not seen before? However, the moment they saw Chu Luiwei, many people's hearts skipped a beat, and their eyes were unconsciously attracted to her. Chu Luiwei was already used to such gazes. When she reached the middle, she stopped in her tracks and smiled. I'm late. I wonder what everyone was talking about just now. Can you tell me so that we can have a good time together? Digression. That's all for today. Friends in the Taifeng district, please be careful. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 943. The woman's voice was clear, like pearls falling on a jade plate, echoing clearly in the main hall. The main hall instantly became even quieter. Wasn't she the one they were talking about just now? However, they couldn't say that out loud. After all, Shangguan Yu was now the emperor of a dynasty. Even if she was slightly inferior to these people, her status was definitely on par with them. As soon as she spoke, everyone in the main hall suddenly had the illusion that they had been caught talking behind someone's back. After a short silence, Ning Yuan took the lead to speak to Chu Luiwei. It's just a small matter. Don't mind it. Now that the Dark North Emperor and the Crown Prince haven't arrived yet, Emperor Yuanshi, please feel free to do as you please. Chu Luiwei's lips curved slightly, and there was a hint of a smile. Thank you. Today, all of you can be considered my seniors. If you don't mind, you can just call me by my name. Although she looked young, her behavior was generous. She had the majesty of an emperor, and she didn't lose the etiquette of a senior or a junior. Ning Yuan had a good impression of her. He nodded and introduced himself. Dongning Dynasty, Ning Yuan. Chu Luiwei nodded and turned to look to the other side. May I ask who this senior is? Gong Sun Shao originally disdained the Tianling dynasty in his heart, but now that the other party had spoken so politely, he couldn't openly make things difficult for them. Xian Dynasty, Gonggen Shao. I've heard a lot about you two seniors. It's an honor to meet you today. If there's anything I don't understand in the future, I hope you can give me some pointers. Chu Luiwei said some nice words with a smile, as if she really didn't hear what they had said in the main hall earlier. After that, Chu Luiwei led her people to the seats next to Ning Yuan and the others. Countless gazes followed her. Seeing her leisurely appearance, many people's expressions became a little strange. This Shangguan Yu doesn't seem to be the same as the rumors. Previously, he had thought that she was an arrogant and despotic little girl. But now, it seemed that she was not the case at all. There was nothing wrong with his words and actions. He was clearly very magnanimous and courteous. Gong Sun Shao and Ning Yuan looked at each other. When I heard the rumors yesterday, I thought that Shangguan Yu was deliberately provoking the Taiyu dynasty because she had the support of Prince Baiming. However, looking at her, I didn't think that she would do such a thing. Gong Sun Shao pondered for a moment, then laughed and asked, "What do you think?" We only heard that you were coming yesterday. We wanted to pay you a visit first, but the distance between our residences was a bit far, and it was too late, so we didn't go because we didn't want to disturb you. I wonder, did you guys have a good rest yesterday? He was asking about the matter of the courtyard. In other words, they were testing the relationship between Chu Luiwei and Prince Baiming. If there really was something wrong, then they would have to be more cautious in the future. Chu Luiwei smiled noncommittally. Thank you for your concern, Senior Gongsun. Like all of you, after we arrived in Lin City, everything was arranged by the Crown Prince himself. Of course, everything is fine. She did not answer Gongsun Zhao's question directly. Instead, she flattered Prince Baiming indifferently. This was his territory, so it was not wrong to praise him. Would anyone dare to refute her words? As expected, when Gongsun Zhao heard this, a trace of disappointment flashed in his eyes, but he did not say anything. Ning Yuan did not say anything. It seemed that he was really not interested in this. Taiyu Dynasty's Emperor Huairan, Tan Taichen, has arrived. Not long after, Tan Taichen and the others arrived one after another. Tan Taichen felt even more frustrated when he saw that the people from the other dynasties had arrived. He greeted them briefly and went to his seat. However, he could not sit still even after sitting down. Tan Taichen clearly felt that many people around him were looking at him. He did not need to look up to know what these people meant. They must have known about what happened yesterday. This made Tan Taichen feel even more embarrassed. He felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. However, they did not say anything, so he did not even have a chance to fight back. He could not help but feel even more aggrieved. Moreover, after staying in the main hall for a while, Tan Taichen noticed that Gongsun Zhao and Ning Yuan seemed to be more polite to Shang Guanyu. Perhaps it was because of what happened yesterday that they suspected that the Tianling dynasty had something to do with Prince Baiming. Tan Taichen secretly clenched his fists. I'll let her be proud for now. When I have the chance in the future, I'll expose her in public. I'll make her lose face. His Majesty has arrived. The Crown Prince has arrived. Two announcements rang out consecutively from outside the door. The noisy main hall instantly quieted down. Everyone looked at the door in unison. They saw a bright yellow figure walking toward them. It was a middle-aged man with a tall and sturdy figure. He was awe-inspiring without being angry, and his aura was strong. It was the Dark North Emperor, Jun Qiji. Half a step behind him was a young man. The man was wearing a bright blue brocade robe. The collar and cuffs of his robe were embroidered with a dragon pattern with golden thread. He had a jade belt around his waist and a golden crown on his head. He was as aloof as a tall mountain and as unrestrained as a misty mountain. A pair of sword-like eyebrows slanted to his temples. His nose was tall and straight, and his lips were slightly raised in a seductive arc. However, the thing that made people's hearts sway the most was his pair of unique eyes. He was born with a pair of red phoenix eyes that contained all the romantic affairs of the world. Although he was smiling, his eyes were as cold and indifferent as a 1,000-year-old lake. A faint red color could be seen in his eyes, like a faint blood red color. It was unforgettable. His eyes swept over the crowd. His eyes were relaxed, as if he had seen thousands of sails, but also as if he did not care about anything. When Chu Luiwei saw him, she was slightly stunned. She could not help but have a thought. This is Jun Jiuqing. What an arrogant man. Yes, arrogant. Even though he didn't say or do anything, Chu Luiwei instinctively felt that he was an extremely arrogant man with just one look. As if sensing her gaze, Jun Jiuqing's eyes turned slightly and he looked over as well. The two of them looked at each other. Chu Luiwei's heart trembled. This man was extremely powerful. Almost instinctively, her entire body instantly went on alert. Jun Jiuqing's lips suddenly curled up and he smiled. When he smiled, the ice in his eyes seemed to have broken. He was innocent and pure. However, under the contrast of the blood-red color in his eyes, there was a hint of cruelty and fierceness that seemed to be unaware of itself. Chu Luiwei could feel that Jun Jiuqing did not have any ill intentions towards her. However, she did not know why the vigilance in her heart did not dissipate at all. Shang Guanyu? Jun Jiuqing suddenly opened his mouth. His voice was low, like the fragrance of wine that permeated the air. Intoxicating people. Long time no see. He said with a smile. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 944. This voice successfully diverted everyone's attention to Chu Luiyue. Countless gazes instantly turned to Chu Luiyue. Even Jun Qiji, who had just walked in, couldn't help but look over with a trace of surprise in his eyes. There was a moment of dead silence. Chu Luiyue instantly tensed up and cursed Jun Jiuqing in her heart. Long time no see? Who have you not seen for a long time? Do I know you? How can you speak like that? However, she definitely couldn't say such words out loud. Chu Luiyue smiled slightly. She was very dignified and gracious, polite and distant. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. I'm doing very well. Thinking that her father was still in the other party's hands, Chu Luiyue could only grit her teeth and play along with the other party's act. Jun Jiuqing raised his eyebrows slightly, as if he wasn't satisfied with her answer. Is that so? But I haven't been doing very well recently. When these words were said, the atmosphere became even more awkward. Many people's gazes went back and forth between Chu Luiyue and Jun Jiuqing as they secretly pondered. Why did it sound like the relationship between the two of them was quite unusual? Could it be that the previous rumors were true? That Chu Luiyue really had Jun Jiuqing as her backer? Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed slightly, and she sneered in her heart. Was this Jun Jiuqing crazy? She didn't even know him. What did it have to do with her whether he was doing well? If he was really not doing well, then it was probably because he had done too many bad things. So you're Shangguan Yu. Jun Qiji spoke amidst the awkward silence. He looked at Chu Luiyue with a gentle gaze and a trace of curiosity. The 9 ministers mentioned you before. This time, it was also he who insisted on inviting the Tianling dynasty along. I hope that your people can also show off their skills during the opening of Ancient Phoenix Mountain. Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched. Did Jun Jiuqing mention her to Jun Qiji? This seemed even stranger. She tugged at the corners of her mouth, revealing a perfect and polite smile. I hope I can count on your blessing. When the surrounding people heard this, they all revealed meaningful expressions. Everyone knew that Prince Baiming was decisive and ruthless. There weren't many who could receive such special treatment from him, right? Tan Taichen furrowed his brows. It was no wonder that the Tianling dynasty, which was originally not qualified, had also come to the ancient Phoenix Mountain this time. It turned out that there was really something fishy going on here. Looks like I'll have to see what the relationship between Chu Luiyue and Jun Jiuqing is before I can decide if I can make a move. Jun Qiji and Jun Jiuqing quickly took their seats, and the atmosphere in the hall gradually calmed down. However, from time to time, there were still some eyes that kept looking at Chu Luiyue. Obviously, Jun Jiuqing's few words just now had already made many guesses in everyone's hearts. Even the few people sitting behind Chu Luiyue were confused and vaguely felt that something was wrong. Elder Chen leaned closer and asked in a low voice, Your Majesty, didn't you say that you don't know Prince Baiming? But from the looks of it just now, it was clearly not him. Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes. Just wait and see. Elder Chen Ku responded and did not continue to ask. Elder Su Jin and the others looked at him inquiringly. Elder Chen Ku shook his head silently, indicating that they should not be impatient. What she said before did not seem to be a lie. Moreover, for many years, the Tianling dynasty did not have much contact with the Baiming dynasty. Today's meeting was really a little strange. However, they believed that she was. Baiming welcomes all of you who have come from afar. Let me propose a toast to all of you. Jun Qiji wanted to propose a toast, so everyone raised their wine glasses. The hall was bustling with noise and excitement. Everyone looked happy and harmonious, as if the open and covert struggles from before had all disappeared. Jun Jiuqing leaned lazily on his chair, one hand supporting his cheek, and his eyes half raised, as if he was not very interested in this. The wine glass in front of him was still full. However, no one dared to persuade him to drink. Even Jun Qiji did not say anything, so how could anyone else have a say? However, they had heard some things about Jun Jiuqing and knew that he was not easy to serve, so they consciously avoided provoking him. Mu Hongyu leaned closer to Jian Fengqi and whispered, "That Prince Baiming seems to be very powerful." Before Jian Fengqi noticed, Mu Hongyu suddenly moved closer, and the woman's warm and sweet scent instantly filled the air. He was slightly stunned and looked over, only to find that Mu Hongyu was talking to him with her side profile, but her gaze was still on Jun Jiuqing, as if she was full of curiosity. Because she was not looking over, she did not realize that she had almost bumped into Jian Fengqi's arms. There was only an inch of distance between the two of them. Jian Fengqi could even see the soft hair on her face. His heart suddenly beat faster, and even his ears and cheeks seemed to be a little hot. He knew that he should retreat, but for some reason his body seemed to be fixed, and he could not move. His eardrums were vibrating, and it felt as if something was hammering on his heart. Don't you think so? Mu Hongyu did not hear his answer, so she turned her head. Their cheeks brushed against each other, and their breaths were close. Jian Fengqi's heart stopped for a moment. However, Mu Hongyu did not seem to notice anything. She consciously stepped back and looked at him strangely. "What's wrong with you?" Jian Fengqi came back to his senses and looked away. "Nothing. He's Prince Baiming. Isn't it normal for him to be powerful?" Mu Hongyu rested her chin on one hand and tapped it. "You're right, but it still feels weird. He seems to know Lu Yu." Out of all the people she had met, Jian Fengqi was ranked first in terms of playfulness and willfulness. However, this Jun Jiuqing seemed to be even more so. However, the two of them were not the same. Jun Jiuqing seemed to be a little evil. Jian Fengqi saw that she was still thinking about Jun Jiuqing. His brows furrowed slightly, and he felt an inexplicable discomfort in his heart. If they were really friends, then what happened yesterday wouldn't have happened. He opened his bone fan and dissipated the heat on his face. Mu Hongyu nodded in agreement. "That's true." After exchanging pleasantries for a while, Jun Jiuqing finally spoke. "Imperial Father, since everyone is here, let's cut to the chase." Jun Qiji was not angry at being interrupted. He stroked his beard. "All right. I'll leave it to you to explain to everyone what's going to happen next." The hall had already quieted down. Hearing this, everyone looked at Jun Jiuqing. Jun Jiuqing looked around, and his gaze lingered on the woman in red for a moment. Then he straightened up with a smile on his face. "I believe that all of you are already aware of the reason why I've invited all of you here. When ancient Phoenix Mountain opens, it will be difficult for my Baiming family to deal with it alone. Moreover, this is a rare opportunity for cultivators. Therefore, this time, we've decided that the people of the 5 great empires will enter ancient Phoenix Mountain together. Digression, there's something going on at home that may take some time to deal with. Continue reading at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network." Chapter 945. Hearing him mention the ancient Phoenix Mountain, everyone's spirits were lifted. Wasn't this the reason they had come this time? From this evening onwards, the barrier outside the ancient Phoenix Mountain will be affected by the force of heaven and earth, and the pressure will gradually fade. After a day and a night, the pressure will be reduced to the lowest point. And at that time, it will be the best time to enter. Jun Jiuqing's words were concise and comprehensive. There is only one entrance to the ancient Phoenix Mountain, and at the same time, it is also the exit. In other words, you have to exit from where you entered. The reason is that this opening was created through the combined efforts of countless ancestors over 1,000 years. This time, we took advantage of the right time, place, and people to open it. Everyone nodded, expressing their understanding. After all, this was a barrier left behind by a powerhouse who had stepped into the deity realm. Normal cultivators naturally couldn't contend against it. Only by taking advantage of this opportunity and working together would they have a chance. It was no wonder that they were willing to invite people from other dynasties to share in such a great opportunity. This was really the only way. 1,000 years ago, the Taizu of the Northern Underworld dynasty cultivated in the ancient Phoenix Mountain. At the peak of the 9th level, he successfully broke through and advanced to the next level. Since then, this ancient Phoenix Mountain has been left behind. In these 1,000 years, the ancient Phoenix Mountain has been sealed and has never been opened. No one has entered. In the long years, the force within the ancient Phoenix Mountain has accumulated and nurtured countless precious heavenly treasures. When the power within the ancient Phoenix Mountain has reached its peak, it will choose to open automatically and release the energy within. Then it will enter the next cycle. And this process is 3 essences as 1. At that time, the accumulated energy within the ancient Phoenix Mountain will surge out like a tidal wave. All the cultivators within will be able to use this opportunity to raise their cultivation. Those with great talent and strength may be able to break through consecutively. With every word Jun Jiuqing said, the expressions of the people sitting below became more and more excited. In this world, the strong were respected. Who didn't want to become stronger? Such an opportunity, some people wouldn't encounter it even in several lifetimes. Moreover, the ancient Phoenix Mountain was worthy of being called a divine mountain. Who knew if they would find the method and power to break through the shackles of the peak of the 9th level? As long as he could get in, he would have profited. The Dark North Dynasty is generous enough to invite us to enter the ancient Phoenix Mountain together. Ning Yuan has nothing to thank you for. I can only ask the elders to do their best to assist us. Ning Yuan cupped his hands. As soon as he spoke, the others naturally expressed their gratitude one after another. Even though they knew that the Dark North Empire had invited them mainly for their own sake, it was undoubtedly a good thing for them. Why would they be so calculative? Jun Jiuqing looked around and seemed to be quite satisfied with everyone's reaction. The corners of his mouth curled up into an evil smile. Everyone, there's no need to be so courteous. When the time comes, the ancient Phoenix Mountain will be opened by relying on everyone. As for how much of the heavenly fate one could obtain after entering, that would depend on one's own ability. Jun Jiuqing leaned back with a faint smile on his face. How about this? There's something I forgot to mention just now. When the ancient Phoenix Mountain opened, only 5 people could enter every 4 hours. In other words, everyone will be divided into 4 batches. Now, why don't we first decide on the order of entering the ancient Phoenix Mountain? As soon as he finished speaking, the main hall instantly quietened down. Many people looked at each other. Previously, they thought that as long as the ancient Phoenix Mountain was opened, everyone could enter together. Who would have thought that there would be an order? Moreover, the interval was not short. It was a full 4 hours. This might not sound like much, but one had to know that time was extremely precious in the ancient Phoenix Mountain. The more time one could spend inside, the higher the possibility of increasing one's strength or finding opportunities. Who would be willing to fall behind others? Therefore, the order became extremely important. The Dark North Empire would definitely be the first to enter. The remaining 4 clans would have to follow their own order. For a moment, no one spoke. Chu Luiyue lowered his eyes and quietly looked at the wine cup in front of him. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. Jun Jiuqing was indeed someone who wished for the world to be in chaos. He was the noble Prince Baiming. Logically speaking, it was not a problem for him to directly decide on the order. But he would not. He wanted the 4 clans to come to an agreement. On the surface, it looked like he wanted to be fair and impartial. In reality, he wanted to stir up trouble among these clans. Before they even entered the ancient Phoenix Mountain, there were already undercurrents surging. With such a commotion, it was inevitable that there would be some friction and disputes among the clans. This directly weakened the possibility of them joining forces. The Dark North Empire only needed to stay out of it and watch everything with a smile. Everyone present was smart. They all knew that the bird that stuck out would be shot. No one wanted to offend others and become a target. I have a suggestion. Tan Taichen suddenly spoke. Hearing this, everyone turned to look at him. Chu Luiyue looked up and saw Tan Taichen looking straight at her. Her heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, a strong premonition surged in her heart. As expected, she then heard Tan Taichen say, "The Tianling dynasty came from afar. It must be tough for them. Why don't we let them go first? What do you all think?" As soon as he finished speaking, the main hall became even quieter. Except for the host, the Dark North Empire, who didn't come from afar. Tan Taichen deliberately said this to emphasize that the Tianling dynasty was the only dynasty that didn't neighbor the Dark North Empire. He implied that they didn't have the right to come here. But not only did they come, but they also stayed in the best courtyard. This more or less made the others feel unbalanced. Didn't they say that they had something to do with Prince Baiming? Didn't they say that they had some background? If that was the case, then they might as well go first. Let everyone see if they had the ability and whether they were worthy. In the silence, Chu Liwei chuckled and said, I didn't expect Senior Tan Tai to take such good care of me. Logically speaking, I'm the lowest in seniority here. I should be last. But since Senior Tan Tai said so, if I refuse, wouldn't it be a disgrace to you? Tan Taichen sneered in his heart, but didn't show it on his face. He said calmly, You're still young and have just been promoted. It must be hard for you to bring them to the Dark North Empire. Let's make way for them. It's no big deal. Chu Liwei smiled and nodded as if she didn't hear the sarcasm in Tan Tai's words. Since you've said so, I'll do as you say. But I don't know what the other seniors think. She looked at Ning Yuan and the others as she spoke. Gong Sun Shao originally wanted to fight for the position, but he didn't expect that Tan Taichen would push Chu Liwei and the others to the front. Moreover, he had already spoken to such an extent. If they refused, they would appear to be very petty. Gong Sun Shao paused and said hesitantly, They're just young girls. They are all young children. Wouldn't it be too dangerous for them to take the lead like this? Tan Taichen laughed. You don't have to worry about this. You don't know that when Shangguan Yu arrived at the border of the Dark North Empire, she had already memorized all the level 9 Xian formations that built the barrier. Once you enter the ancient Phoenix Mountain, you'll be invincible as long as you use it a little. Digression, I was busy outside today. When I got home, I fainted and fell asleep. My mind was in a daze. The rest of the update is about 9:30. Sorry, sir. The typhoon is so strong. Everyone, pay attention to your safety. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 946. Chu Liwei shook her head. The emperors of the various empires will be waiting outside, and I am no exception. There were only a total of 5 people who could enter. She had brought 5 people with her from the beginning, which was just right. With Jian Fengqi and little Zhou, there shouldn't be any problems. I will wait for you outside. Seeing that Chu Liwei had made up her mind, Mu Hongyu knew that it was useless to persuade her, but she still felt a little regretful. But this is a rare opportunity. If she missed it, wouldn't it be a pity? Chu Liu's eyes curved. Don't worry, I have my own plans. Hearing her words, Mu Hongyu could only nod her head. Elders, please take your positions. Following an elder's command, the experts of the various empires moved out and stood in their positions according to the plan they had agreed on earlier. In front of this huge colorful barrier, the experts each took a corner, forming a huge pentagon. On the 5 points of the pentagon, the 5 powerhouses from each dynasty formed a small pentagon. Among these people, the weakest was a peak rank 8 expert. The strongest was the elder who had spoken just now, the Dark North Empire's great elder, the peak rank 9 expert, Hua Qian. It was said that he was only 1 step away from a higher realm, and he was undoubtedly a top expert. Many people secretly guessed that he would become the 2nd Dark North Empire expert to enter the God Realm. Naturally, the opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain would be led by him. Rise. At Hua Qian's command, everyone moved together. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In an instant, forces of various colors flew out and intertwined in midair. Then, they gathered in the middle of the pentagon and formed a ball. As time passed, the ball of light gradually grew bigger. Below, the young geniuses of the various empires had already taken their positions and were prepared to enter according to the order. Standing at the front was the Dark North Empire that intended to be the first to enter. Jun Jiuqing was among them. Standing beside him were 3 young men and a woman. These people looked to be in their 20s, but the aura around them was not to be underestimated. At this moment, the few of them were gathered together and seemed to be discussing some arrangements after entering. Jun Jiuqing listened lazily, as if he didn't care at all. After listening for a while, he felt a little bored, so he turned to look at the Tianling dynasty. Then he raised his eyebrows slightly. This is Jinlingzi. Every pearl can sense each other. After you enter, you can use this to contact each other. Chu Luiyue took out a golden bracelet from his interspatial ring and tore it open with a little force. Then he gave the beads on the bracelet to Jian Fengqi and the others. As for herself, she kept the biggest one, which was also the only one with patterns carved on it. If you encounter danger, you can crush them. Each of them contains an 8th-level Xian formation that can help you block one attack. Hearing this, the few of them revealed a shocked expression. They did not expect that this round and smooth golden bead would actually have such power. Jian Fengqi weighed it in his hand and glanced at Chu Luiyue. If I remember correctly, this Jinlingzi bracelet was broken back then, right? Chu Luiyue nodded and said casually, yes. That's right. That's why I fixed it again. Jian Fengqi was speechless. Forget I asked. How could I forget that this is a freak? Even if she had started all over again and didn't have the Tianjing Yuan meridian, her talent was still unbelievably high. He thought that with this opportunity, he could still turn the tables. Now, it seemed like it would be quite difficult. Indeed, comparing oneself to others would only make one angry. Once the 8th-level Xian formation is activated, its power will disappear. If you encounter danger again, the only way is to crush it quickly. Once this Jinlingzi is crushed, the others who have Jinlingzi will receive the news immediately, including me. Moreover, after this Jinlingzi is crushed, it will emit a special smell that will stay on the person's body for 3 days. This way, the others can quickly find the person who is asking for help. Of course, the prerequisite is that the person asking for help must also ensure their own safety during this period. Wu Ming glanced at the colorful barrier and asked in a low voice, Your Majesty, the most important thing in this opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain is the 3 essences as one. Everyone's focus should be on that. Even if there is competition between them, they won't go too far, right? After all, the emperors of the various dynasties are waiting outside. If there are really heavy casualties, how will they explain it after they come out? Stupid. Yuan Jinghong nudged him with her elbow and raised her chin. Wu Ming, you are so obsessed with cultivation that your brain isn't working. Do you really think that these people are so kind that they will let us snatch the benefits? It is because this 3 essences as one is too powerful and too tempting that it is the most dangerous. Look, who here isn't ready and eager to give it a try? If we don't make more preparations, we won't even know how we died. Wu Ming followed his gaze and found that it was indeed so. The young geniuses of the other dynasties seemed to have gathered together to discuss something. Most of them had solemn expressions, and the atmosphere was tense with a hint of danger. If that's the case, I was too naive. Wu Ming was a little embarrassed, but he still clenched his fists. Don't worry, Your Highness. We will do our best. No matter what, they couldn't let His Highness lose face. Chu Luiyue smiled slightly and didn't care much about this. She only looked at the few of them and said seriously, those are secondary. Safety first. Yes. It's a pity that Shangguan Yu doesn't intend to go in. Tantai Ruoli had been paying attention to the situation at the Tianling dynasty's side from afar. When she saw Chu Luiyue patiently explaining something to the other 5 people, she couldn't help but feel disappointed. She had wanted to use this opportunity to teach her a lesson. She could flaunt her power outside because she was the empress, but inside the ancient Phoenix Mountain, it would be a real competition of strength. She probably knows that she can't beat us, so she's purposely hiding? Yu Zifeng said disdainfully. But don't worry, Ruoli. If we can't take care of her, we'll let the rest of them suffer a little. It'll be considered as payback. Tantai Ruoli snorted lightly. Of course. Out of all the candidates from the Tianling dynasty, those from the Tianling dynasty were the weakest in terms of overall ability. They could easily take care of them. The most powerful one among them seems to be Jian Fengqi, but I heard that he's a celestial physician. His combat strength should be average. As for the others, it was needless to say. Yu Zifeng looked at Tantai Ruoli eagerly. Ruoli, I'll avenge you when the time comes. Tantai Ruoli nodded. We have to let Shangguanyu know who they can offend and who they can't. Just when everyone was ready, the last trace of the setting sun disappeared into the Black Mountain range. Elder Hua Qian gave the order. Ancient Phoenix Mountain, open. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 947. Chu Liuyue's voice was cold and dignified. Every word she said echoed clearly in the hall. It was like a loud slap on Tantai Ruoli's face. Tantai Ruoli's face instantly turned red. She had never been humiliated like this in front of so many people. Shangguanyu, I have reminded you before that my reign name is Yuan Shi. Princess Tenai, have you forgotten it so quickly? Chu Liyue interrupted Tantai Ruoli coldly. Her dignified manner was even stronger. She was born noble and had been in a high position all year round. Now that she had ascended the throne, the noble aura in her bones was even stronger. At this moment, she no longer restrained her aura. Her aura instantly formed an invisible mountain and pressed down on Tantai Ruoli's shoulders. Tantai Ruoli felt her shoulders sink and her face turned pale. How dare you? Tan Taichen saw that his precious daughter was being bullied. Anger rose from his heart. He gathered the force in his palm and slapped it out. The orange force turned into a huge palm print and went straight for Chu Liyue. A strong wind suddenly blew in the hall. Chu Liyue's black hair swayed and the corners of her clothes fluttered. She fixed her eyes on the palm print that was flying towards her and sat firmly in her seat. It seemed that she had no intention of fighting back. Moreover, there was no surprise or nervousness on her face. Elder Chenku's aura turned cold and he was about to make a move. Suddenly, a white light blade flew across the sky. The sound of something breaking rang out, and the white blade of light actually flew out from the huge orange palm print. Bang! The palm print collapsed and the force contained in it began to spread wildly in all directions. However, almost at the same time, a transparent enchantment appeared quickly and enveloped it completely. In the blink of an eye, the vigorous and violent force quickly dissipated. The hall regained its peace. Everything happened too quickly. The crowd did not even have time to see what had happened. It was already over. When all the fluctuations subsided, many people looked at the white light blade in a daze. They realized that it was a silver chopstick? That thing once again transformed into a streak of light and quickly flew back. A slightly hoarse voice rang out lazily. Tan Titan, who gave you the guts to behave so atrociously here? Tan Taichen was shocked. He looked up and saw that Jun Jiuqing had sat up straight and was holding the silver chopstick in his hand. It was Jun Jiuqing who did it? Realizing this, Tan Taichen was both shocked and scared. He was shocked because he did not expect Jun Jiuqing to be so direct and not give him any face. What he was afraid of was that from that strike, Jun Jiuqing's strength was clearly above his. If Jun Jiuqing had exerted more strength just now, he was afraid that, for a moment, Tan Taichen's face turned red and white at the same time. At this moment, he could not tell if Jun Jiuqing had done it to protect the dignity of the Baiming Kingdom or to help Shangguanyu. If it was the former, he could just bow his head and admit his mistake. But if it was the latter, did it not mean that he had offended Jun Jiuqing? Your Highness, please forgive me. Just now, I saw my daughter being bullied. In a moment of impulse, I forgot that we were still in the main hall. Tan Taichen forced himself to speak, trying to defend himself. I don't care who bullied your daughter. But you can't do it here. Jun Jiuqing could not be bothered to listen to him and directly stopped him. Tan Taichen was extremely aggrieved. If he had known, he would not have made a move just now. Although Shangguanyu had also exerted pressure, he did it quietly and did not attract the attention of others. His palm strike just now had directly given his opponent a weakness that could be used against him. Tantai Ruoli was also stunned by the scene in front of her. She had always been doted on, and her words had always been the law in the Taiyu dynasty. She had long been spoiled. Therefore, even when she came here, she could not restrain herself. It was only when she saw her father's move being easily defeated by Jun Jiuqing that she realized that the Baiming Kingdom did indeed have the right to be arrogant. Chu Liuyue's lips curled into a smile. It seems like Senior Tantai and everyone from the Taiyu dynasty are a little angry. Why don't we wait until later to enter the ancient Phoenix Mountain? I'm afraid it's not very appropriate to go in with such anger and fury. Tan Taichen's heart tightened when he heard that. This Shangguan Yu is really cunning. Taking advantage of my words to take the first place, he actually wants Taiyu to be the last place? No, that makes sense. Ning Yuan, who had been watching from the sidelines, suddenly spoke in agreement. In that case, our Eastcom will be the third place. On the other side, Gong Sun Zhao's mind raced when he saw this. Although he also wanted to be at the front, the situation was complicated now. It was better to not cause trouble. He only pondered for a moment before agreeing to it. Brother Ning, since you are following the Tianling, we will follow behind. Is that okay? Apart from the Taiyu dynasty, everyone else was fine with it. Tan Taichen was so aggrieved that his lungs were about to explode. It would have been fine if only Shangguan Yu said this, but Ning Yuan and Gong Sun Xiao, who followed closely behind, nodded in agreement. What else could he say? One had to know that among the dynasties present, Taiyu was only slightly stronger than the Tianling dynasty. How could he openly oppose the others? Chu Liwei looked up slightly and glanced at Tan Taichen. Senior Tantai, what do you think? Tan Taichen swallowed the surging blood in his throat. If that's the case, then that's great. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 948. Chu Liu's eyes curved into crescents. That's good, everyone is happy. Tan Taichen felt as if his heart had been hammered again. His chest felt suffocated. Everyone is happy. Who wants to be happy with you? He originally wanted to use this opportunity to embarrass Shangguan Yu in front of everyone, but he didn't expect to go for wool and come home shorn. Instead, he put himself in danger. They were the last to enter, and there was a gap of 16 hours between them and the first to enter. It was almost a day's time. By the time they entered, all the good things might have been taken away by the people in front of them. What was left for them was probably just some leftovers. But now, other than them, everyone else had expressed their agreement. What could they do? Tan Taichen took a deep breath and suppressed the anger and resentment in his heart with great difficulty. Father, are you all right? Tantai Ruoli asked worriedly. Tan Taichen shook his head. He wasn't injured, but he had completely lost his face. If it wasn't for waiting for the opening of ancient Phoenix Mountain, he definitely wouldn't continue to stay here. It's all my fault. If I hadn't been so impulsive, this wouldn't have happened. Tantai Ruoli's eyes were red, and she seemed to be blaming herself. Yu Zifeng, who was sitting beside her, felt his heart ache. He couldn't help but persuade her gently, Ruoli, how can this be your fault? You didn't do anything wrong. The wrong thing is, that name rolled in his throat. Thinking of the situation just now, Yu Zifeng swallowed those few words back. In short, this matter can't be blamed on you. Don't blame yourself too much. Tan Taichen sighed and patted her arm lightly. Zifeng is right. We have already formed a grudge with them. Even if you didn't say anything today, they wouldn't have treated us well. That Shangguan Yu was so arrogant and conceited. Tantai Ruoli choked for a moment. She quickly glanced at the opposite side, then quickly retracted her gaze and bit her lip. Father, that Shangguan Yu didn't dare to show it in front of everyone, which means that what she said is definitely false. She didn't even remember that level 9 Xian formation. Her voice was very low. At this time, the hall had regained its liveliness, so not many people heard her words. Shangguan Yu used his identity as an excuse to get angry. He must be trying to cover up the truth. Tan Taichen closed his eyes. Don't worry, Imperial Father will make you pay for this. The order to enter the ancient Phoenix Mountain had already been decided. Next, everyone decided on some specific details. It was mainly about how the experts of the various grand empires should work together to open the enchantment of the ancient Phoenix Mountain, as well as some things to pay attention to after entering. After they finished discussing, everyone set off for the ancient Phoenix Mountain. The ancient Phoenix Mountain was located behind Linzhou City. In other words, the huge Linzhou City was built right next to the ancient Phoenix Mountain. The mountain range rose and fell continuously. It was majestic and magnificent, and it could be said to be a natural defensive barrier. By the time they arrived at the foot of the ancient Phoenix Mountain, it was already close to evening. The setting sun slowly set. The afterglow of the sun shone, outlining the continuous lines of the ancient Phoenix Mountain. As the bright red sun was slowly swallowed by the black mountain range, the sky gradually darkened. The experts of the 5 grand empires were all ready. Chu Luiyue looked up. A brilliant enchantment enveloped the huge ancient Phoenix Mountain. It was majestic and awe-inspiring. She held her breath. This was the pressure of an expert who had stepped into the legendary realm. Mu Hongyu asked in a low voice, "Lu Yu, are you really not going in with us?" Digression, today's update is unstable, so I'll make up for it with a piece of supper. Good night, everyone. Mobile users, please browse and read. Chapter 949. His voice was full of energy. Everyone in the main hall heard it clearly. After a momentary daze, the sound of people sucking in cold air could be heard. What did Tantaichen say? Sheng Guanyu had already memorized all the level 9 profound formations at the border of the Dark North Kingdom? How could this be possible? Oh my god, did I hear it wrong? Sheng Guanyu. Level 9 profound formations must be a joke, right? I heard that Sheng Guanyu had amazing talent in the past. She was indeed a level 8 mystic master. The few level 9 profound formations at the border of the Dark North Kingdom were jointly created by several level 9 mystic masters of the Dark North Kingdom. They are extremely complicated. Not to mention Sheng Guanyu, even if it was other level 9 mystic masters, they would need to spend a month or so to completely memorize it. How could she have done it? Everyone was talking about it. Gong Sun Shao also felt that it was extremely absurd. He immediately laughed. Brother Tantai, what are you talking about? Tantai Chen's expression was as usual. Brother Gongsun, you and I have known each other for many years. You should know me well enough. Would I joke about this kind of thing? Sheng Guanyu said it herself at that time. The smile on Gongsun Zhao's face suddenly froze. He looked at Chu Luiyue in disbelief. Tantai Chen poured himself a glass of wine and said in a seemingly unintentional manner, "At that time, we arrived at the border almost at the same time as the people of the Tianling dynasty. As soon as we got out of the teleportation formation, we heard them talking about this." As he spoke, he looked up at Chu Luiyue. Although there was a smile on his face, his eyes were full of coldness. "If I remember correctly, Sheng Guanyu, at that time, you seem to have said that it would take 15 minutes? Since she dared to ask such a question to his face, it was most likely true. The noisy discussion disappeared in an instant. Countless pairs of eyes were fixed on Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue tilted her head and smiled honestly. "Yes, what's wrong?" "What's wrong? What's wrong? You said it yourself. Who in this world could do such a thing?" And she actually admitted it so honestly? Did she think that by boasting about everything she could make herself look more powerful? Those present were all the top experts and geniuses of the various dynasties. But none of them dared to say such a thing in public. Looking at her face, it seemed that she didn't care. Did she even know what she was talking about? Chu Luiyue's answer was so frank that everyone couldn't react for a moment. Even Tantai Chen, who wanted to see her make a fool of herself in public, had a stunned expression on his face. He originally thought that Chu Luiyue would deny it, but who knew? It seems that Emperor Yuanxi has a well-thought-out plan. He has already comprehended all the 9th grade profound formations and memorized them by heart? Tantai Ruoli, who was sitting at the back, finally couldn't help but speak up with a mocking expression. When she said Emperor Yuanxi, she deliberately emphasized the word Emperor Yuanxi. Chu Luiyue glanced at her indifferently with a faint smile. This empress merely memorized all the profound formations. He didn't know it by heart, and he didn't dare to say that he had completely comprehended it. Not to mention other things, it is definitely not something that can be comprehended in a day or two to comprehend such a top-notch profound formation. However, Tantai Grand Princess is not a mystic teacher, so it's normal that you don't understand these things. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she leisurely took a sip of wine. Tantai Ruoli choked. She was mocking her for not being a mystic teacher. Was she so great just because she was a third cultivator? The current Shangguan Yu was no longer at the primordial heavenly meridians, and her strength seemed to be only at the 6th rank. Even if she could continue her cultivation as a mystic teacher and a heavenly doctor, her realm and strength were not enough. So what was there to be arrogant about? Did she really think that she was still that rare genius from before? This princess is indeed not a mystic teacher, and I'm not clear about the intricacies of this place. I'm not as good as Emperor Yuanqi, but with just a few glances, I was able to memorize the 9th level mystic formation. With this kind of talent, I'm afraid there's no one who can match up to me in all the empires, right? Tantai Ruoli sneered in a rather eccentric manner. Ugh, Chu Liyue seemed to have a headache as she rubbed her temples. Sometimes, people who are too outstanding will indeed be a little troublesome. Sigh, actually sometimes, this empress is quite envious of people like Tantai Grand Princess. She doesn't have as many troubles as this empress. Tantai Ruoli, everyone, they had seen people who could brag, but they had never seen one who could brag like this. Tantai Ruoli was so angry that she laughed. So you're saying that you've really memorized all of those 9th grade profound formations? Chu Liyue blinked her eyes. Why can't I? As she spoke, she turned her head and looked at Jun Qiji, who was sitting in the seat of honor. Your Majesty, this empress didn't take too many glances at that grade 9 profound formation at your border. You won't mind, right? What else could Jun Qiji say? That was a profound formation that was specially used to construct boundaries. Anyone who entered or exited the dark north border would see it. How could they not let others see it? Not to mention taking a few glances, even if someone set up camp outside and looked at it for a year or so, there was no need for them to stop them. Of course not. Jun Qiji coughed and turned his gaze to look at Jun Jiuqing, who was beside him. Previously, Jun Jiuqing had only mentioned this Shangguan Yu once or twice. From their conversation, he seemed to admire this woman. Otherwise, he wouldn't have invited Tianling dynasty this time. But he didn't say that this woman was actually so arrogant. Jun Qiji originally had a good first impression of her, but now it was somewhat discounted. But from the corner of his eyes, he saw Jun Jiuqing leaning on his chair and watching the few people arguing below. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, as though he found it rather interesting. The demonic aura around him seemed to have faded quite a bit. Jun Qiji muttered to himself. Jun Jiuqing really seemed to treat this Shangguan Yu differently. On the other side, after getting Jun Qiji's reply, Chu Liyue's eyes curved and she looked at Tantai Ruoli. Eldest Princess Tantai should have heard His Majesty's words. Do you have any more questions? Tantai Ruoli was so rebuked that she couldn't say a word. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning wildly in her chest. As though he sensed her abnormality, Tantai Chen turned back to look at her with a warning in his eyes. Don't forget where you are. You must not be willful and cause trouble. Tantai Ruoli clenched her fists in her sleeves so hard that her knuckles turned white. It took her a lot of effort to restrain the anger in her heart. She forced the corners of her mouth to reveal a rather ferocious smile. Actually, I'm just a little curious. After all, this kind of thing is indeed not something that everyone can do. I wonder if Emperor Yuanqi can demonstrate it in front of everyone so that we can be convinced? As long as she, Shangguan Yu, dared to nod, this hypocritical mask would immediately be torn off. Tantai Ruoli's eyes were fixed on her, and the others were also waiting in silence. They seemed to be equally curious. Shangguan Yu, was she really as powerful as she said? Chu Liyue smiled slowly and put down the cup in her hand with a bang. She looked up slightly and her eyes were cold. Everything I said is true. Whether you believe it or not, it's up to you. If you want me to demonstrate it in front of everyone and prove it, do you think you're worthy? Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website of Self-Love. Chapter 950. Rumble. With a deafening boom, the ball of light that gathered the power of so many experts finally exploded. At the same time, a colorful barrier slowly opened in the middle. Finally, a pentagonal entrance was formed. Enter, Elder Hua Qian shouted in a deep voice. Of course, This shout was directed at the Baiming dynasty, which was ranked first. However, Jun Jiuqing didn't move. He only looked at Chu Luiyue thoughtfully. Based on his understanding of her, she would definitely grab hold of such a good opportunity. Why didn't she want to enter in the end? A young man beside him couldn't help but remind him. Your Highness, we should go. Jun Jiuqing retracted his gaze and entered through the entrance in a flash. The others followed closely behind him. The 5 figures of the Dark North dynasty disappeared in front of everyone. A faint layer of colorful light spread out from all directions, once again covering the entrance of the pentagonal shape. Seeing this scene, everyone finally understood why there was a 4-hour interval between each entry. This barrier was simply too powerful. Even with so many top experts working together, it could only hold on for a short while. If the second batch of people wanted to enter, they would have to wait patiently for the experts to open the barrier again. And this was the time when the barrier was at its weakest. No wonder no one has entered the ancient Phoenix Mountain in the past 1,000 years. Such a strong barrier, I'm afraid only experts of the same level can forcefully open it, right? Yuan Jinghong muttered in shock. If it wasn't for the fact that the ancient Phoenix Mountain's power had gradually increased over the years, causing the barrier's power to weaken, they wouldn't have the chance to enter. The tense wait seemed to be especially unbearable. Night had completely fallen, and the sky was dark. Dark clouds covered the night sky, and the moon and stars couldn't be seen. Only the surrounding soldiers, each holding a pearl, could illuminate the foot of the mountain. Perhaps because the first batch of people had already entered, everyone's hearts were in suspense. I wonder what's going on inside. Jun Qiji put one hand behind his back and looked at the barrier that was still emitting a beautiful glow. His brows furrowed slightly. Your Majesty, don't worry. His Highness the Crown Prince is very powerful. This ancient Phoenix Mountain was left behind by Taizu. Everything will go smoothly. The palace servant next to her advised in a low voice. If it were anyone else, it would be understandable for them to be worried. But in Jun Jiuqing, there was really no need for that. The blood of the Dark North royal family flowed in his veins. Logically speaking, not only would he not encounter any danger after entering the ancient Phoenix Mountain, he might even encounter some opportunities. The Crown Prince has been stuck at a bottleneck for a long time now. Maybe he can take this opportunity to break through. That would be a great thing. Jun Qiji gently nodded. I hope so. As he spoke, he turned to look at Chu Luiyue. Like most people, he thought that Chu Luiyue would go in, but who would have thought, under the night sky, the light from the lanterns shone on her face. She was calm. She was not as nervous and uneasy as the others. It was as if she had nothing to do with it. Jun Qiji's heart skipped a beat. Such patience and mental state was not something that an ordinary person could possess. At this moment, Elder Hua Qian shouted again. Again! Boom! Following the loud noise, the colorful barrier inside the pentagon opened once again. Let's go! Jian Fengqi's gaze was firm as he turned around and left. Mu Hongyu and the rest also followed behind. Chang Wanzhou turned around and looked at Chu Luiyue. The youth's unbelievably beautiful face was still indifferent. Only his eyes seemed to be gradually stirring. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. Chang Wanzhou's rose-like lips were tightly pursed. She tiptoed and followed the others. The figures of the few people also disappeared within the barrier. Seeing that the few of them had gone in, Chu Luiyue slowly exhaled and sat down on the prepared chair. He seemed to have made up his mind to wait outside peacefully. What a pity! Gong Sun Shao finally could not help but speak up when he saw this scene. Sheng Guanyu, how could you give up on such a good opportunity to cultivate? Even if you're the emperor, no one said that you can't go in. I heard that you're extremely talented. It's really a pity. Chu Luiyue smiled. Thank you for your concern, Elder Gong Sun. This is a rare opportunity. I've already treasured it greatly by bringing them here. I don't dare to ask for anything else. Gong Sun Shao could not help but feel even more puzzled when he heard her words. Could it be that she never thought of going in from the start? They were not allowed to go in because they were too old and did not meet the requirements. Furthermore, they were already so old. It would be too embarrassing to compete with young children. But Sheng Guanyu, she's only in her teens, right? Even if it was based on her previous age, she should only be 21 or 22 years old. Could it be that without the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, she also lost her drive? No matter how others guessed, Chu Luiwei remained unmoved. He sat on his seat and waited quietly. After that, no one asked him such questions again. Chu Luiwei finally had some peace and quiet. She wanted to take advantage of this time to cultivate, but when she thought about how she had to pay attention to the ancient Phoenix Mountain and the surrounding situation, she did not choose to cultivate with her essence force. Instead, she chose to redraw the level 9 Xian formation in her mind. It was not easy for her to draw it and connect it. Now, she had to consolidate it and study it more. Being able to see it was one thing, but being able to redraw it was another. And comprehending it required a lot of energy and spirit. Fortunately, she had done some research on level 9 Xian formations before, so it was not as difficult as she had expected. As time passed, the Xian formation in her mind became clear. Third batch, enter. Following Elder Huaqian's order, the 5 people from the East Com dynasty finally entered. Fourth batch, enter. This time, it was the Xian dynasty. At this moment, the sky was already turning white. Only the people from Taiyu dynasty were left. They were still waiting. After a night of nervous torture, many people looked much more haggard. Tantai Ruoli rubbed his eyes. His eyes, which were originally black and white, were now covered with blood vessels. The others weren't any better either. Although no one stopped them from resting and sleeping, who could sleep in such a place at such a time? Tantai Ruoli glanced at Chu Luiwei from the corner of his eye, but he still looked energetic. She clearly did not sleep the whole night. Why was there such a big difference? At this moment, Tantai Ruoli did not know that Chu Luiwei had been repeatedly drawing those level 9 Xian formations the whole night. His spirit was comforted and nourished by the high-level Xian formations. Naturally, he felt comfortable all over. Fifth batch, enter. Finally, they heard this sound. Tantai Ruoli and the others were invigorated. Before they could say anything, they entered one after another excitedly. Immediately, the colorful barrier closed again. At this moment, the Jin Lingzi on Chu Luiwei's wrist suddenly trembled. She lowered her eyes to take a look, and her gaze turned sharp. Wu Ming's Jin Lingzi had been crushed. Digression, read together at 6 p.m., mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.